From the atrocities of the past to the argument you had with your friend last week, humanity seems to have a surprising affinity for cruelty. We are often unkind, indifferent, and capricious, even when there appears to be no personal gain in it. John Mill once said that all it would take for evil people to achieve their goals is for good people to stand by and do nothing. The idea behind this is that when a great moral disaster occurs, only a small minority of the population is actually committing the atrocity. However, it is almost always passively enabled by the majority, who refuse to act against it. Tolstoy suggests that most of us have a fairly clear notion of what is right and wrong most of the time. This is because we do not spend our days analyzing complex ethical or philosophical cases, but simply live our lives guided by a common sense of morality. Whether or not this is entirely true, if it were, it would be a significant disadvantage for demons. According to Screwtape, the experienced demon in the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, one of the most revealing explorations of everyday evil, is found in this work. The author describes a demon's advice on how to divert a man from God and goodness, leading him instead toward vice and cruelty. Screwtape is tasked with steering his patient away from virtue and toward moral corruption. He states that although demons may not be able to convince a human that a particular moral argument is incorrect, they can almost certainly make it seem irrelevant. People are often drawn to ideas for their practicality or dignity rather than having a rational reason to believe in them. Therefore, Screwtape advises his subordinate Wormwood to plant in the victim's mind the idea that concerns about morality, God, or ethics are not real, that they are too abstract to have practical significance. Under no circumstances should the patient be allowed to consider what is right or wrong. Instead, he should remain entirely focused on the immediate and practical aspects of his life. If he begins to think about ethics or theology, Wormwood must immediately distract him, returning his mind to what he will eat for lunch or the concerns of the morning's meetings. The idea is to promote a general sense of apathy toward anything related to values. Humans may claim to have principles, but if those principles are disconnected from their actions, it is as if they do not exist at all. The goal of Screwtape's manipulations is to ensure that humans never become too attached to an ethical position. Instead, they should gradually shift into a kind of moral nihilism, not by outright rejecting their values, but simply by being distracted from them repeatedly. The reasoning behind this is simple. The more distant moral concerns become, the easier it is for other priorities to take their place. According to Screwtape, this is a relatively easy task because humans are not naturally enthusiastic about strict value systems in the first place. This idea is particularly fascinating because it applies to many of us. Most people like to think of themselves as principled individuals who strive to be kind. Yet we can recall countless moments when we were far less kind than we could have been, simply due to how we felt in the moment. Although Lewis primarily discusses how material concerns can cause us to neglect our relationship with God, this concept has broader implications. Many times, even unconsciously, we allow ourselves to think that the values we hold are not entirely real or are merely theoretical, a luxury we abandon when faced with reality. Those who do not believe in God may not fear the fires of hell, but if they violate their own values too many times, their conscience can torment them more than they ever anticipated. As we transform into something unrecognizable to ourselves, the internal suffering becomes overwhelming. Despite Christianity's general emphasis on human free will, Lewis spends considerable time discussing the importance of social circles and environments in shaping a person's mind and ultimately leading them astray. Early in the novel, Screwtape expresses approval that the patient spends time with a materialistic friend. Later, the demons ensure he surrounds himself with a group of high society intellectuals who see themselves as sophisticated. The patient, eager to impress his new friends, begins to repeat their ideas. When they advocate for a position he finds morally reprehensible, he simply nods or subtly adjusts his stance to show agreement without explicitly stating it. Screwtape ultimately wants the patient to develop a divided personality, praying in church and seeing himself as a good Christian, yet contradicting those very principles at dinner with his new social circle. This cultivates a useful mindset for demons, a mixture of self-justification and deep hypocrisy. On one hand, the victim can still consider himself a good person, but on the other, his habits will increasingly drift away from his principles, aligning instead with whatever is most convenient in the moment. This shift should happen so gradually that he does not even realize it, until one day, he no longer knows what is right or wrong, only what is useful at any given time. Screwtape argues that one of the most valuable mental states a demon can instill in an unsuspecting victim is frivolity, the refusal to take any matter, whether moral or otherwise, seriously. The goal is to immerse the patient so deeply in irony that he forgets what he truly believes and stops caring about truth altogether. Perhaps the most unsettling idea is that simply being in good company does not necessarily mean one is safe. In one instance, the victim joins a group of well-intentioned, principled, and selfless people. However, instead of seeing their virtues as a reflection of his own shortcomings, he is guided to believe that, because he is in their company, he must be as good as they are. Instead of emulating their qualities, he begins to look down on those outside his inner circle. Rather than inspiring selfless kindness, his social environment fosters division and contempt. Lewis emphasizes that the line between good and evil is not just a philosophical concept, but a practical, everyday reality. Recognizing this duality within ourselves means acknowledging that we possess both the capacity for good and for evil. The choice between these extremes is not a one-time decision but a constant struggle, a daily battle. By understanding this, we become more capable of directing our actions and making choices aligned with our values. The key message that Lewis conveys is that it is never too late to change. Coming to terms with our everyday wrongdoings may be painful, but it is also the first step toward transformation. Lewis underscores the damage caused by ordinary malevolence, but in doing so, he also elevates the significance of everyday kindness. Just as the path to hell is paved with small sins, the road to heaven is built upon humble virtues. This is a hopeful note on which Lewis ends his work, a perfect counterbalance to the discussion on the impact of ordinary evil. Ultimately, the question remains, what does it take to resist the call of darkness and stand firm against the situational forces that push us toward monstrosity? The answer lies in personal responsibility. Recognizing our capacity for both good and evil allows us to make conscious choices rather than be passively shaped by our circumstances. The awareness of this struggle does not just make us better people, it makes us more intentional in our actions. The battle against evil is not fought in grand, heroic moments, but in the small decisions we make every single day.
Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like and a subscription. If you could keep listening to the video until now, congratulations. You are a warrior who have the capacity of bringing attention for a long time. Leave a comment saying this, "I'm brave." Then you will let people know that you have the brave to improve your life quality, and you'll try to be better each day. Now bye until the next video. A big hug from the being of knowledge.